Hello, I'm the Miami Autism Dad, Victor Antunes, inclusive my realtor, and this is the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers. Today I'm with Dr. Laura Olivos and Diego Davila. Diego is a autistic young adult, and Dr. Laura works in the autism space. Now, the reason that we're having this conversation is a few months ago, David Lawrence, co-founder of the Children's Trust, he emailed me an article on the dangers of AI and the neurodivergent mind. So I immediately thought of Diego because he'd been on the podcast before. And then I think it was Dr. Michael Alessandri might have pointed me your way, which was really cool because you guys had a bit of a background. So like we're all like old friends getting together here. Now, AI, when I talk about AI, I'm talking about large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, just so people who are watching, they know what we're talking about. Now, myself, I use ChatGPT all the time. I mean, I've been using it now for over a year, and I probably got into it like the very first month it came out. So I've been using it long enough to know that it would just make stuff up. Mm-hmm. And even though there's disclaimers that ChatGPT sometimes just makes stuff up, mm-hmm. when you're using it, it's not very obvious. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to guess that if you're a part-time user, mm-hmm. or somebody doesn't use it a lot, like you said that you don't use it much.
I don't.
It's going to be hard to spot though when it goes off the rails. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you use it a lot, you're like, oh, well, this is not true, Mm-hmm. So how have you seen this show up in your practice, Dr. Laura?
In various ways, depending on the context that it's used in, and also the profile that we're working with. Mm-hmm. I would say, at a baseline level, the world feels heavy. And then when you add being neurodivergent and having to navigate the world, it's even heavier. Mm-hmm. And so what I've seen a lot is that AI and apps like ChatGPT create kind of a bridge of relief and respite from workloads, mental loads of having to brainstorm through things. And it creates kind of this space where, tasks can be done in a more efficient manner, mm-hmm. or it can be also a way that a lot of my autistic folks that I work with can feel a little more confident in their writing or in their communication styles when trying to navigate neurotypical language, right? So I've seen that the main kind of benefit that they've gotten from it, from what's been shared with me, is the sense of task demand relief. In addition to that, I would say on the social end, because it's such a friendly face, not friendly face, but like a friendly presence, you get this positively reinforcing interaction that's often not necessarily something they experience out in society when there isn't that inclusion at the forefront of a community. So I think it can be a slippery slope, mm-hmm. But I think that when done correctly and when done with proper informed consent, I think it can be beneficial. But there's definitely been some troubles and challenges that I think that come with trying to navigate this really new tech.
I think maybe I'm trying to think like a corollary, maybe like with social media. When it first came out, it was very addicting. Yeah. And then once you get over your personal addiction, you're like, what was I so into this for? Yeah. Do you think maybe it's going to be like that?
Yeah, I think over time it can lose meaning if you're just relying on it
or
for
attraction.
Everything.
I'm also like the attraction.
Yeah. I think eventually people might desensitize, but at the same time, it depends on how much society actually will reinforce its use. Mm-hmm. I know that, for example, plagiarism, like you were mentioning, Diego, right. earlier, can be like an issue.
Mm-hmm. And plagiarism could be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of issues with AI, but I think one of the big things is that it can be manipulated into bad things. And I think, like Stephen Hawking once said, AI could be very dangerous in a not too distant future. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to prove us right by saying that it can be used in different ways. I mean, deep fakes are like the worst thing that could happen in mm-hmm. today's society. You never know. It looks so realistic that when you accuse somebody of like a crime or something and you use a deep fake, mm-hmm. it looks so real that, mm-hmm. that they could actually be implicated when they haven't done anything wrong. Mm-hmm. So
now, Diego, you said that you don't use AI much. Has that been a conscious choice, or you just don't see the traction? Like, why don't you use it much?
I really see it as like, I don't use it because I don't see a use for it other than preparing my lesson plans for my school. As a school teacher and everything, I find it very easy mm-hmm. to perform lesson plans and everything. But other than that, I don't use it that much because some of my hobbies and some of the things don't require use of AI or my other jobs.
Now, you were talking about plagiarism at school. Like, what kind of students you have, first of all?
Well, all my students never do this type of stuff. So all my students are very loyal. All my students are beautiful children who love and care about each other. So they haven't really heard about AI too much. They're also old school. So we just use traditional teaching instead. We don't really use AI too much in the whole school setting.
And your students are all on the spectrum?
Yes, I believe some students are all on the spectrum. Yes.
But earlier you mentioned plagiarism being a problem. So where have you seen that being a problem?
I've seen that in public schools. I've been reading articles lately on the news saying that students have been using AI to write out essays for homework. Like, people have been using it to cheat on tests, to cheat on things, like pass off a 19-page essay as their own when AI has done it already for them. So AI is turning people into cheaters somehow. Like they like to cheat a little bit on their homeworks and everything.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
Right.
Because even like the AI checkers, like there's ways anything eventually can be defeated.
Right.
Right. Like decrypting technology. Like there's always a way to just defeat stuff. So you were talking earlier, Dr. Laura, about just the world feeling heavier. And how do you think that AI is or is going to bring relief to these people in good and bad ways?
Well, I think it's a great tool to have that immediate relief. And a lot of us, I think in every way, we try to find ways to cope, right? And a lot of coping skills can be great and healthy, and other times it can be not so healthy, right? So I think it's a matter of balance and how you're using it. If you're relying on it for every single aspect of your life and every single task demanding your life, I think that's a slippery slope, because it also will rob you of your unique voice. It'll rob you of your unique way of thinking. But I also, when I zoom out, I really think it's a failing on our end as a community for the autistic folks out there that feel maybe the need to rely on this solely for a lot of things, right? So if we did a better job, for example, at accommodating students on the spectrum in the educational space in a more meaningful way, or had more funding for education, to be able to relieve teachers from burnout and to relieve teachers that are working in the ESC spaces, then maybe children wouldn't feel so compelled to try to find other resources outside of that classroom space for support.
Right. Because I think ChatGPT also helps me with the feeling of not getting burnt out as well, because, preparing those documents and lessons from scratch is actually very hard and it's actually overwhelming. It can take up a lot of hours. But when you just type in a simple prompt like, say, create me a outline for career and education class for neurodivergent kids age like 16 to 20, and ChatGPT immediately types it out in just a matter of 1 second. Your whole outline is right there, ready for you to print out and everything. But it's pretty sad. That's what I use it basically for, just for that reason. But ChatGPT with anything else, actually my father recently used a ChatGPT to create one of my Christmas presents. It was a gift certificate to go to the racetrack, and ChatGPT created this paintwork of race cars and helmets and everything, saying Diego Davila gets 2 free races at the Homestead Speedway type thing. So it was pretty cool that AI could do that.
That is pretty cool. Let me ask you a question, Diego. Like time-wise, that lesson plan that ChatGPT makes for you just in a matter of seconds. Right. Before ChatGPT, how long would it have taken you to make that lesson plan?
Well, the thing is that I started teaching with a Rising Start at most recently, like 3-4 years ago, and ChatGPT is already starting to exist. It was already starting to exist and everything. So what happened was, on my first day of like just planning as a teacher, I was writing everything by scratch, and it would take me probably for like one subject 2 hours to write up one lesson plan. So it was like a lot of thinking and imagining. And it wasn't until my life coach at the Rising Start, her name's Sharon, she decided to introduce me to AI, to ChatGPT, saying it's very simple, you should try this. So when I found out that you could do this, my dad also introduced me to it. It was a life changer. I immediately started using it for the lesson plans, but nothing else really.
Let's see how long that lasts though. Because there's creep. Things just creep up on you.
Right.
Now, you talked about task demand, Dr. Laura. And something that I see in my own use of, large language models is that you don't have to think as much as you used to, right? Like I might like write out a paragraph and it doesn't sound right. And I know it doesn't sound right and I could figure it out on my own, but I'll just such ChatGPT, hey, just make this more sensical and boom, and it comes down like, that's how I would have done it.
Yeah.
But it relieved me of that task demand. So I see that being a problem in terms of our intelligence, not just autistic, but any mind.
And critical thinking in general. I think there's that old saying in the neuro world, like if you don't use it, you lose it, or it gets really compartmentalized in a deeper space in your archives, right? Your mental archives. So I think just like that principle says, I think brains are really attracted to easy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like if there's a dopamine hit that comes from it, that's reinforcing. And if it's easy and there's a smaller bridge to get from point A to point B, the brain will run with that. So I think over time, though, if you do that repeatedly, I think you end up losing yourself and you end up losing the struggle. And I think in the mental health space, our goal is to lessen struggle for people. We're all on this collective struggle bus, right? But our goal as mental health clinicians is to help you manage and navigate struggle, not necessarily get rid of it.
Right.
And we know from research, and especially in resilience research, that struggle can help us grow. It can help us think better. It can help us be better humans. It can make us more empathic. And so if we are used to not struggling and thinking and problem solving,
right,
it's not good.
Well, it's like
for a lot of different reasons.
Well, it's also like the word stress. Like when you stress your muscles, you want to stress your muscles because they grow back bigger and stronger. Yeah. But you wouldn't want to be digging ditches 24 hours a day because that would then kill you.
Correct. So you need that balance.
So there has to be something there.
You need that good hurt, right? Like if you're like out working out, it sucks because you're like sore and sweating and uncomfortable, but the payoff is there and you get that reinforcing nature of leaving the gym feeling more energized or whatever. But ultimately in the thick of it, it's not always pleasant to be working out, And I think the same can be said for the cognitive space, right?
For a neurodivergent individual, I believe sometimes working out, like you said, can be tough at times,
Yeah.
For neurotypicals, it might be a little bit more easier on them, but sometimes the human mind can not comprehend when relaxing at the right time can be relaxing. So when you exercise for the neurodivergent individual, it can actually be a little overwhelming for them.
Absolutely. Because there's also just all of these different sensory aspects too to the activity itself.
There is.
But yeah.
Now, Diego, he's working with younger students, so it's easier to control their screen time.
Yeah.
But
well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Well, here's the thing: if you live at home with your parents,
there's more rules.
There's going to be some guardrails. Whereas if you're living on your own, all of a sudden you're on your own.
Yeah.
Those guardrails,
they're off. Yeah.
They're completely gone.
The parental controls are no longer there.
Right.
So to the parents who have got neurodivergent adults, that they're seeing a problem with their kids. Yeah. And their kid being an adult.
Yeah.
What should they be looking for?
I mean, listen, first and foremost, your adult child on the spectrum is first and foremost their own person, and they need the freedom to be able to make decisions on their own so that they can feel empowered to know that, they have a voice in what they want. And I think that's so important. However, I think there's something to be said about true informed consent when it comes to taking on things like AI or different spaces on the internet, And what I mean by that is, does your adult child really know the pros and cons to using ChatGPT? Do they understand it at the level of their language, at the level of their cognitive abilities to really understand what this means and what the pros and cons and the risks are? And I think that's what's lacking. There isn't, as far as I've seen so far in my own research, a way to do that. And I think it's a personalized conversation for each family, because every person has a different profile and different needs and different language, et cetera. But
now, obviously, when this person's an adult, they are their own person. And they should have some sense of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're going back to different levels of cognitive ability.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I had on a rep from the National Council on Severe Autism.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that they can't advocate for
Mm-hmm.
themselves. They can't do anything for
Mm-hmm.
themselves because of their cognitive abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, between that severely autistic person and let's say more high functioning like Diego, there are going to be people in the center that, yeah, they can be autonomous a lot of the time, but they could have problems with this.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we protect those people?
Well, I think it's about being able to figure out a way to concretely and directly and specifically address how to communicate these principles at their level. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a unique, personalized experience and conversation that has to be had, whether it's through the use of AAC devices to be able to communicate some of these, more broader themes, or visuals. It's definitely a conversation that needs to evolve over time as people kind of continue to experiment in this space, because essentially this is a really big experiment. Yes. But I think that attempting to have these conversations is important, and informing their treatment team, for example, that, Johnny is starting to want to use ChatGPT to kind of chat or experiment a little bit. Here's where I'm going to need your support in helping him understand kind of the nuances of this in his own way, in his own language.
Yeah. And it's definitely going to evolve the same way. I mean, not the same way, but just like social media evolved, the conversation is going to evolve, and the guardrails. Because, when social media first came out, there was no guardrails. It was wide open. You had predators on there taking advantage of young people. And now, I mean, it still happens, but there are guardrails. So I think that with the large language models, we're going to have those guardrails.
Well, ChatGPT just came out with, and forgive my ignorance on the tech end of things, but I would call it like a feature, extension, whatever, specifically for autistic users. So it's like ChatGPT autism version. And supposedly it's designed to help them practice social skills, pick up on nuances relating to like figures of speech and idioms. It tailors kind of some of the conversation around the profile of what autism means to,
Right.
the open AI community, I guess, or whoever is behind the task force that defines what autism means to them. But I think at a bigger scale here, autistic voices need to be incorporated in whatever's being whatever's being done, excuse me. Because you guys are the experts, not us. At the end of the day.
Well, I would say my boss is the expert. Yes, Maria Alejandro, she's the expert.
Yeah, but I think you have a unique vantage point of what it's like to exist in an autistic brain.
Yes, it's certainly an adventure. That's for sure.
And there's different kinds of experts. So, there's like the clinical expert like Dr. Laura, then there's the lived experience like yours. So, and the fact also that you're a young adult now and not a 12-year-old, you're going to have experiences that 12-year-old didn't have.
Right. I had many experiences that the 12-year-old didn't have.
Oh, we've all had. You're not the only one.
Right.
Thinking back to like your lessons plans, I'm in real estate and somebody said that AI will not replace realtors, but it will replace realtors who don't use AI. Or realtors who use AI will replace
out old school realtors.
Yeah. So like you're using
ones.
Yeah. So like you're using it now for your lesson plans. Now you still had to tell it what you wanted. And at the end of the day, you are going to decide whether you like that lesson plan or not. But it's going to become part of of our world. And then like with tech, there was a time, I'm going to guess, there probably are still schools that don't allow tablets and phones. And then there's schools that it's part of the lesson is having a tablet. And maybe one day that like AI now, like it's taboo to have it do your homework for you. But maybe in the future, I might be like, well, of course it does your homework for you because otherwise you couldn't do the gazillion other things that you got to do in the day. So I was telling you earlier, Diego, on Saturday, I was talking to a young autistic boy, he's a teenager or so, and I tell him, that's just part of the deal. And when I walk around, he asks his dad, what deal is he talking about? Like he took what I said very literally. How do you see this present itself with your students?
Well, I think it really depends. Really, I think there are some students out there who not mine per se, but I would say some people take things very literally. And personally, I take things very literally. sometimes don't understand the meaning. What some things that are. Sometimes even my own coworkers kind of like laugh at me sometimes for taking things too literally. So I'm kind of like the most paranoid kind of guy in the workplace type thing. So so I don't blame the kid, because I also take things literally. They'll tell me things, and sometimes I don't distinguish what's real or what's not real, or like what's like reality. So I also have a hard time with my mindset that I have wired with, to understand what's like the main point.
Now, Dr. Laura, do you think that there are like speech patterns we could be looking for that would be like, oh, this is a red flag?
Can you specify that a little more when you mean speech patterns in the context of what?
When you have an autistic person talking to you.
Okay.
And I don't know, just maybe they want to, like, because you'll meet with a person, how they talk, and then maybe like the way they talk, it just goes off into the weeds somehow.
Okay.
Maybe with politics.
Where they're tangential, or
just where they'll maybe just what would you see like as just like red flags?
Red flags as it pertains to like
the language, the way they're talking and thinking now.
Okay. I think when it comes to red flags, if I'm thinking of it in the context of like mental health, I always am looking for speech patterns that really are like self-deprecating, hopeless in nature, and the narratives that they, how they share, how they feel about things. Those tend to be, more of my red flags as a clinician. Hopelessness is a really big indicator to me that things aren't so good for them mental health wise. If there is a difficulty distinguishing fantasy versus reality in their speech, that can also be tricky, which, by the way, kind of coincides with our topic on AI, right? Because at the end of the day, if someone really starts to feel reinforced all the time by them, and by them I mean chat, right? Then it can be a slippery slope for people that really struggle with existing more in the pharisaical realm in their mind, right? They might start to develop an emotional attachment, or, rely on them emotionally, which doesn't replace the human connection, right?
Yeah. You use the word hopelessness, but in my experience, ChatGPT is the very opposite. It tells you how awesome you are, how smart you are, what a great writer you are. And like, wait a minute, I didn't write this. You wrote this. Now you give me credit for something I didn't do. So I think that maybe the hopelessness, if I've ever felt hopeless, it was from social media. The large language models.
Keep up, right?
The large language models had the very opposite effect. I mean, they make me feel like I'm the king of the hill, Now, I think though what you did say that is fantasy. That is where ChatGPT is going to be
plays
a problem.
into it, right?
The fantasy, because the hopelessness. No, I don't feel hopeless. I feel hopeless on social media, not on ChatGPT. But on ChatGPT, I just feel like I'm not that great. I'm a good guy, but it's like I think the fantasy is where that's going to go off the rails.
Yeah, and it can then ultimately, although it doesn't feel that way in the moment when you're chatting with chat, ultimately it can mean isolation, which we know for mental health for anyone, whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, is a really huge risk factor, right?
It is. And
so, again, when I zoom out from this AI topic and I look at the broader spectrum, no pun intended, part of me really wants to focus as a community is like, we can't get rid of AI, but we can become stronger in supporting autistic folks in every space so that they don't feel so burdened by the world, and they're not needing to then rely on resources like ChatGPT for friendship, for community, and for thinking. Right? I think that's my biggest takeaway. Like we need to do better if we want to help this AI piece be more friendlier to the neurodivergent community.
Yeah, and we're just like, I mean, even though it's been out for like a year now, has it been like maybe more than a year?
More, right? Like a couple of years.
But it's gotten like to be such a part of the social fabric that it's like I can't imagine the world now without ChatGPT. Yeah. Or Gemini, or just all those in general.
And it's funny, I was like thinking about what you said, Diego, earlier about like lesson planning. And I'm thinking like, okay, cool. Like chat, created this awesome lesson plan and super sophisticated and detailed and whatever. But guess what? Like you show up at the Rising Start and you've got your outline, but you're you, and you're delivering that material in the only unique way you know how, which is very specific to your experiences, your personality, your connection with the children's profiles and personalities and the dynamics in the room. And that AI can't produce, period.
That's true, yeah. AI cannot reproduce your personality.
And your connection
right.
to those kids and the way they show up in that space and the way they feel about you and the way they feel in that space.
Right.
So I think that's the like balance, right? Like, cool, like you generated an outline, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still me, and I'm showing up with my own unique presence and connection.
Right.
Yeah, I think that one of the dangers with the AI is that you have your personality,
Mm-hmm.
but if you use it too much and you don't check yourself, the personality just comes to the mean, to the average. Because like I find it using a lot of words over and over again, and I'll tell it, don't use words like journey, don't use words like navigate.
Don't neutralize me, right? To like be mainstream to
because
one level.
There's the buzzwords that are out in the zeitgeist that all of a sudden they're out there and everybody's using it for whatever reason. I'm like, but I never used to use those words.
Exactly.
And then but if you're not careful, because look, I remember when I first started seeing the word navigate and journey, I was like, that sounds really cool. Like I'm navigating. I'm just driving to the corner store. I'm not navigating, but navigating sounded so cool when I first heard it. And now it's just like, it's cliche, you know? So I think that the danger with AI is you have your personality, but if you're not careful, it'll take your personality away from you.
I could, yeah.
Now, Diego, you were saying that, you don't have these problems with like plagiarism with your students, but I would say that probably most teachers would say that, and yet people cheat all the time.
Right.
So like, how do you navigate that?
I love that journey for you.
Well, it really depends, really, because like my students, they don't know how to use AI.
Okay, which fair enough because they're young and
right, they're young. They don't know how to use AI. AI is a very complicated thing. We basically just teach them the most traditional way. We read to them, we give them the papers. They have to figure it out for themselves. They have to read the papers themselves, and they have to understand the material that they are reading. So it's really like independent work. It's tutoring work, really. So, but AI is not really used in our classroom because we believe that it's not our belief, but it's my belief that AI is just technologically too advanced for these kids to use nowadays. Maybe when they're older, more mature, they'll be able to like understand AI better.
But I would even say too that like a lot of your kids go home and they play video games, and even within the video games themselves, or even in Google or YouTube, they're starting to add AI features.
They are,
yes.
Like what? Like in the video games, because that's where kids are at.
So like chatbots in video games tend to have AI like features.
They have to. They have to.
Right.
And so to some degree, there's that exposure, and I think I could go on a wormhole about the use of video games and like all of that when it comes to neurodivergent.
You're not pro video games?
Oh, no. Like, I think it's actually a huge blessing for a lot of people. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And actually there's a whole space within our mental health community that specializes in leveraging video games as a therapeutic tool. And there's been some, I would say, mixed research on the benefits, but overall, if used correctly, it's a blessing. It forms a lot of different skills and creates community where they might not be able to find it elsewhere.
Okay, but this is a great segue into my next question. So you have some autistic people have trouble with social interactions. Do you think that if these video games gamified, I don't want to say proper, but just maybe like more socially acceptable, or I'm not sure what word you should use, but like gamified social interactions, that could help? Because if you do something over and over and over again, it's like muscle memory. Let's say you play tennis, you serve, your serve gets better.
Yeah.
Do you think that we could gamify using AI games that teach neurodivergent people how to interact in social situations?
I think it depends on the profile, and I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of, if not most autistic folks and kids that I know do know how to socialize. They just socialize differently than a neurotypical individual. And they have their own way of connecting with others, and they have their own little love languages and their own way of showing up in the space of community. And so I think there's use maybe in using whatever interests they have. And if that interest is video games, I've leveraged it before to help introduce neurotypical language to them and neurotypical social codes to be able to help them understand and navigate, society. And we'll use examples within their interest to be able to help them understand a concept that needs to be taught. So in that regard, I think there's use for it. But I think it depends on what their goals are too. If they, a lot of times video games can be this really sacred space where they're not having to be therapized, if I can use that term. They're not having to be taught. And if you think about an autistic individual's day,
right,
from wake to sleep, they're being taught something 24/7.
Well, we all are.
Yeah. But even more so if you're neurodivergent.
Oh, but why is that?
Because I think that you're taught from a very young age that the way you do things is not the neurotypical way, and you need to learn how to do that, right? And you need to learn how to do it for survival in society. But you're constantly being taught a different way to do things, right?
That's true. That's
and
true.
It's taxing. And so a lot of kids on the spectrum might use their video games as their safe space to just decompress and be themselves and navigate a world that they can control versus them having to have it being controlled for them. So I think, yes, there's use for it, but it really is contingent on, is that appropriate for that child, to add like almost like a therapeutic social skill element to their video gaming, or will it ruin the concept of what that is for them too,
Yeah. I think of my own daughter. She's level 2 nonverbal, and I can tell when she's just frustrated and you gotta just leave her alone. Now, she's too unsophisticated at that age anyways to learn AI. But I wonder, like with kids who are at her level, nonverbal, do you think that there would be like a useful function for AI in the future for them? Or
I think everyone could benefit from AI in moderation, and if it's tailored to the unique goals and needs to that individual with proper, proper guardrails, like you said earlier, right? When you use that term. I think there's a space for everyone on the spectrum, regardless of their language abilities or profile nuances, to gain something and to lose something, depending on, like I said, where they're at.
Yeah. So, when David Lawrence, when he sent me that article, it sent off all sorts of alarm bells in my mind as a dad, And have you had parents come to you with these same concerns?
All the time. I mean, I would say that it's kind of tricky because parents are also trying to figure out how to navigate it themselves and try to figure it out. And I'm, as the therapist and supposed quote unquote expert, right? Yeah. I'm also in like the beginning stages of like you figuring it out myself and experimenting with it, and also being aversive to it in some ways, So yeah, there's concerns, but I think it's like one of the areas where I'm guiding them to tailor a plan to use AI and the internet as a whole, really specific to the needs and like the concerns related to that child.
Wait, unpack that last part.
So my guidance to them is really tailored specific to that child's needs and concerns. You know what I mean? I think part of my work is also empowering the parents to not demonize the internet or screen time as much as it is to be smart about it and to make use of it in a way that's meaningful to that child versus the standard. Does that make sense?
Of course, because I always like draw parallels between AI and social media. When it first came out, like nobody was the expert. Now we've all been using it long enough that we're the expert in our own usage. Yeah. Like I do use social media for work, but am I on it like watching cat videos? I just don't do that.
For all the entertainment.
Yeah, and I remember like years ago, not so much now, but like people would post like what they had for lunch, like a picture of their lunch. It's like, why are you posting a picture of your lunch?
Oh my God, I was guilty of that. I'm a millennial.
People still do that now.
Listen, phone eats first, okay? That was our big millennial
saying.
Saying.
What?
Phone eats first.
Phone eats first. That's funny. I'd never heard that one before.
There's just something satisfying, really, about taking pictures of food. I did the same thing.
It's like, guys, look how amazing this food is that you can't have.
Yeah, so you're kind of like bragging to those people, like sticking it in their face.
I don't know. It's we all have our trends. Every generation has their own little quirks and trends.
I mean, the new trend nowadays with my students, they're repeating this phrase 6-7. I'm like, I'm like, I don't understand. What does that even mean?
What does that mean?
It's basically, well, I looked it up. Basically, it's something called brain rot. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's just its own meaning. Like, all it is, and the famous quote is, the kid would come up to me and he would go 6'7" with the hands like this, 6'7".
Yeah.
Right. But the problem is that it doesn't mean anything. It's just the way.
Like a catchy phrase. I think it also had to do at some point with like a video that went viral.
It was a rapper.
Yeah.
A rapper who had a lyric in a song that went 6'7" and as well. And then people started using it as a way to mess with people. I mean, even my friends at the racetrack, they use that term on me because they know I'm like one of those like late Gen Z that doesn't understand that, thing.
Aren't we kind of blessed though that we don't have to understand it? We can just be like, listen.
Yeah, because
there's a lot of sayings.
I'm an elder millennial. Like, I don't need to know. I just need to.
So you were born after 2000?
I was 88.
I graduated high school in 88.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So it's interesting about like all these these phrases.
Yeah.
It's like you've heard "drink the Kool-Aid."
Yeah.
Have you heard "drink the Kool-Aid"?
Well, I don't think I'm that old.
You never heard that? You're drinking the Kool-Aid?
I don't think
You've heard it. Do you know where it comes from? I'm not going to say where it comes from. Do you know where it comes from?
I just remember that the meaning of it is that you're going with the flow and kind of taking in whatever that person is saying and agreeing with it.
Okay, well, I think it was...
I think
like you're buying into whatever it is that they're trying to convince you.
And not even thinking. So that came from the 70s in a very terrible incident that happened down in British Guyana in South America.
Okay.
A bunch of Americans went down there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because like I remember it being on the news when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it perfectly well, like the history of it.
Yeah, you know the origin of it, yeah.
Whereas like you've used it, don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Like 6'7", like who knows where that came from.
It was probably most likely it came from the rapper's video of him using that term.
Had you heard that before, Dr. Laura?
I have. I used it in sessions with my teens too.
Really?
Yeah, just to build rapport.
Oh, because you work with teens.
Yeah.
But like me,
like I have to be like,
right.
Yeah, you gotta.
I gotta be in with the cool kids.
You gotta, yeah.
And then the new Generation Z, they're using terms that I don't even understand as a teacher.
Yeah.
They're using terms like if they feel like you are kind of like pushing it a little bit, they use it. Okay, now you're dragging it, bro. You know.
Well, I would understand dragging it.
Dragging it, bro. Right? And I'm like, okay. And then when something is like really like high quality, they say this is so peak.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Or if something is like average, this is so mid.
Yeah, so mid.
And if something's really bad quality, so buns.
All figures of speech in some ways, right?
All figures of speech. Like they used to say dope. Someone's really good. That's dope.
That's dope. Yeah, that's a classic one. Yeah.
But we know dope isn't so cool.
Dope is not cool at all. Yes. So like this whole AI conversation is funny because even though I did my homework to get ready for this, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's ready for this. Like so many questions out there. Like with social media, I have an opinion on social media. Mm-hmm. But with AI, I don't really have like a strong opinion yet, you know?
I think the key is realizing too much of something is always not going to be necessarily healthy.
Yeah.
And to keep that principle in the back of our mind and to have an openness of learning and humility around it, you know, like knowing you're not going to have all the answers. And I think a big takeaway for me too is like, allow it to relieve you in the ways that it needs to,
mm-hmm.
Testament wise.
Testament, yes.
Correct. But also embrace sometimes the struggle.
Yes.
And thinking on your own and being creative, having the creative process, voicing something in only words you're able to come up with on your own. Mm-hmm. And language is so important, I think, in the autistic community.
It is, yes.
You know, you have speaking and non-speaking adults and children, but that doesn't mean that they don't have language or their own unique language of how they show up in the world and how they communicate with the environment, with other people. Mm-hmm. And to some degree, Chat GPT or OpenAI or whatever, they can rob you of that uniqueness.
I already see that.
And socially, where does that leave us, right?
Like I've seen books where I'm like, this is a Chat GPT book, mm-hmm. like from start to finish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, But
I think we have the responsibility as adults and as a community to really look at why it's such an attractive thing. Mm-hmm. And if they're trying to meet their needs through that device or that application, then as a community, we need to figure out how to bridge those gaps more for those vulnerable populations of people.
I agree.
Yeah. And I will say, like, from what I've read of like Sam Altman and people like that, that are involved in that space, that they are like doing a good faith. Mm-hmm. Whereas like maybe like Facebook did a lot of things were really super sketchy. I think that like what I've seen so far, people in the AI space, like the big names that we know about, they are doing a good faith effort to build in these guardrails. But it's hard.
But I think too, and maybe I'm like a little jaded, the good faith came from a backlash. It didn't come from the goodness and charity of their heart.
Might be that too.
And I think everything really comes down to money.
Yeah.
If they don't create kind of like nuances for people on the spectrum, like they might lose out.
Or there'll be lawsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Great. Yeah. Well, Dr. Laura, this has been great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Diego, thank you for coming back.
Absolutely.
And for sharing your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Let's turn to the camera. We'll sign off. So this has been the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers with Dr. Laura Olivos and Diego Davila. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.